In this video, we're gonna take a look at creating a login application with React Native. We're gonna use Node and Express on the backend. And as you can see, if you type the wrong login credentials, we're gonna get an alert, user not found. Please try again. And if we try to log in with the right credentials, we're gonna be directed to the member area. And if I restart the application, you will not have to log in again. It's gonna redirect automatically to the member area since we are already logged in. So let's get started. So I just started with a fresh React Native installation, and I have already installed the React Navigation library. If you don't know how to install it, I'm gonna leave a link in the description. So I'm gonna start by importing the React Navigation. So import the stack navigator from React Navigation. Then I'm gonna delete the style sheet because we don't need it in this default component. And I'm gonna delete the layout. And in the layout, we're gonna return a component called application, which we're gonna create now with the stack navigator. So define a new constant called application. And we're gonna create the actual navigation of the application to be able to view the home screen and the profile screen. We're gonna start by declaring the home screen. We're gonna name the home screen login. Then I'm also gonna add I'm gonna make the navigation menu bar. I'm gonna delete it so it's not visible in this application because we don't need it. So I'm gonna add navigation options. Then I'm gonna add header false. Like that. And now you can try to reload the app. Now you're gonna get an error saying there's no home screen. And we're gonna create that now. I can't find the variable login. So let's go ahead and create a new folder. Name it app. And in the app folder, create a new folder named components. And create a new file. And we can copy all the code in the main app.js component in here. And we can remove the navigator. And let's name this component login. Save this as login.js in the components folder. We can delete the application from the return the login. And also we're gonna import the login in the main app. So import login from app/components /login. And we can just try to return some text to see if it works. Also I'm gonna change the syntax to Babel. And let's just see now if it works. Yeah, you can see the text under the Expo navigation bar up there. Now the login component will hold the layout and functions for logging in. So we're gonna go ahead and create that right now. We're gonna start by importing the components we're gonna use. We're gonna need a text input for writing username and password. and we're gonna use the keyboard avoiding view for we're gonna add remove the text inputs above the keyboard, so the keyboard does not overlap the text inputs. And we're gonna use touchable opacity for buttons, and async storage for storing the user data. Async storage, like that. We're gonna start by creating the constructor for the login component. And we're gonna add a state. The username is gonna be blank, and one state for password is gonna be blank too. Then we're gonna create a component did mount function. And this function is ran before the render function, and we're gonna use it to check if the user has already logged in previously or not. So from the component did mount function, we're gonna call another function which we can call load initial state. So let's create that function now. Now we're gonna start by getting the username from the sync storage. We're gonna create this later, adding the username to the sync storage, so don't worry about it now. We're just writing the logic for this now. So create a new variable, call it value, and then we're gonna use async storage dot get item to get the username and check if the user is logged in. And now if this value is not null, it means the user is already logged in, and then we can use the navigator to navigate to the member area page, which is called profile, and we're gonna create that later. Now let's create layout for this component. We're gonna start by creating a keyboard avoiding view. Give it a behavior of padding, and also give it a style. We will create the styles later. Styles.wrapper. And now this keyboard avoiding view, it will move after how the keyboard of the phone moves. So if the keyboard goes up, the keyboard avoiding view goes up. So nothing is hidden below the keyboard avoiding view and the text input. Next, create a new view, give it a style of container. And we can create a text component. In the text component we can write, let's call it login. This is just a header for the application, some text. Then we're gonna create a text input for the username, give it a style. We can call the style text input. We will create that later too. We'll create all the styles later. Create a placeholder. Give it a value of username. Then we're gonna add an onChange text function. So if we change the text in this text input or write something in the username, it's gonna update the state of username, which we declared up here. And then also for Android phones, you can add underline color Android and set it to the value to transparent, because it adds an ugly underline if you don't. We can actually reload the app now, see if we got any results. An error, line 17, let's see what. Oops. It's supposed to be like this, of course. And equal sign there too. And yeah, of course, I haven't declared the styles yet. So we're gonna wait with reloading until I have declared the styles for the view. So we can copy this text input for the username and use it for the password too. So just change this password, because when we change this, we're gonna up the state of the password. And we're actually gonna use this state later to send it to the backend and check it if it exists in the database to verify if a user exists. Now we're gonna create a button for logging in. You can give it a style of button. And on press, when we press the login button, we're gonna create a function for it named login. So on press this.login, add some text to it. We can say login. And there we go, that's the layout ready. We can just declare the login function here, we're gonna create it later. We can just say for now is to try it out later. Alert test to see if it works. And also we're gonna add a style sheet right now. So I'm just gonna copy an already existing style sheet which you can copy. This tutorial is more about the backend and how to actually build this kind of application, not how to write the style sheet, and this is not very much style sheet, so you can just copy it. Let's reload the app and see what happens now. And yeah, there you go, that's the front end of the app. And just go ahead and post a video right here and you can copy this style sheet. So now we're gonna create the actual login function. We can try it out first. Let's see what happens if we press this login button. Yeah, then it's running the login function correctly. And now what we want to do, since we're gonna have to check if the user exists in a database, we will create the database later, we will create the backend later. But for now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use React Native fetch method, and we're gonna send the username and the password to the backend. And later in the backend, we're gonna check if the username and password exists in the database, and if it belongs to the same user. And if it exists, we're gonna use the navigator and navigate the user who's logging in to the member area screen. So let's use the fetch method. And the first argument for the fetch method is the IP of your client. You can't use localhost because your phone has its own IP, so it doesn't know what localhost is. So you're gonna have to write your IP here. I'm just gonna write something for now. I'm not gonna write my entire IP. So just something for now. I'm gonna change that later so it works, but I don't wanna show my IP to everyone. And we're gonna use Express backend with Node on port 3000. So write port 3000 / users. We're gonna call the route users for getting posting and getting the data. And then we're gonna use a method of post to send the data to the backend. We're gonna pass headers, and we're gonna use application JSON as header, and set the content type to the same thing, application /JSON. And the body of the post is gonna be the username and the password in JSON format. So we're gonna use JSON.stringify, and we're gonna send the username as this.state.username, and the password as this.state as password. So now this is gonna send the values of our states which we declared previously up here. Then we're gonna handle the response. As JSON. And we're gonna send back data later to check if it's success. If the user exists, it's a success. So this part basically means if the user has this username with this password, let's log him in. And then we're gonna set an item in sync storage. So set item. We're gonna name the item to user, and the value of the user item is gonna be result.user, which we're gonna pass later. It's gonna be the username. And we're also gonna navigate the user to the profile page. Like that. And if it's not a success, we want to tell the user you don't exist in the database. So we're going to do an alert of the result and use the message as the message in the alert. And that's it. And just reload the app and see if you got any errors. Yeah, we got an error. Unexpected total, line 95. Let's see. Oh, it's missing a comma sign up here. Let's check it out now. It's a typo. Yeah, there we go. That's the front end right there. It's ready. And in the next part we can start working on the backend and handling the data that we're sending to the backend. Just one more thing we can try is just so you know how you get the actual username try to alert this.state username, and you can see if you type, it's gonna reload the app. If you type John as username, press the button, it's gonna alert John. Yeah, now of course we get the network request failed because this IP doesn't even exist. But that's the value that we're sending. Let's just go ahead and create a profile component also. So create a new file. You can save it as profile.js. You can copy the code from login.js. I'm going to change the syntax to Babel to remove the default style sheet. And also delete the login function because we're not going to use it. You can delete everything except the container. And you can leave a text component in there too. Let's see. Can you just create a fast style sheet for the container for the profile area, which will be visible later when we log in. Let's give it a flex 1 for full width and full height. You can set the line items to center and justify content to center. And let's give it a background color too, the same as we're using in app.js. Sorry, login.js. This blue background color for the container. And also let's give this a style of, we can call it text. And give it a color of white. And this is just gonna be the text inside the profile screen. We can say welcome to the member area. That, and we don't need this constructor and componented mod functions, so we can remove them. We can also remove async storage, touchable, opacity, keyboard avoiding view. We're not going to use any of them in this one, not the text input either. Like that. And we're not going to need a stack navigator either, so we can remove that one too. And that's it for the profile page. Now we can't view the profile page right now, but we're gonna at least import it because we're gonna use it in the next part of this tutorial. So include the profile from profile. So that's it. Now we have the front end part ready of the application, everything we need in the actual app. And we get the login function ready to go. I'm just going to indent that one. And we got the profile page ready to go. So in the next part, we're just going to set up the backend with Express and Node. And we're going to set up a simple MySQL database with PHP MyAdmin. And yeah, we're going to create the user authentication from the backend. So hope you learned something, and we'll continue the next tutorial. Bye bye.